Okay. Um, Before we start chapter 2, I found in addition to chapter 1 from page 17, in this chapter, Dr. Dispenza was recalling an experience he had uh, during which he realized that everything happens in the present moment, past, present, and future. So starting out on that page, quote, instead, I understood that everything is actually happening in an eternal present moment. In this infinite amount of time, there exist infinite spaces, dimensions, or possible realities to experience. Next sentence. And each one of those limitless possibilities already existed. I knew that by putting my attention on any one of those possibilities, I would actually experience that reality. This amazing vision was showing me that the pineal gland, like a cosmic antenna, had the ability to tune into information beyond our physical senses and hook us up to other realities that already exist in the eternal moment. End quote. So when I read that, I started thinking about the questions I've had regarding time. You hear so often there's only the present moment. But if there's only the present moment, the now, how can we create a new future? So think about this. If all the possibilities already exist, it becomes a matter of stepping into one of them in the present moment. That's the now. And it's the pineal gland that helps us tune into those other realities. Okay, on to chapter 2. It's kind of a lengthy one. If you need to stop this and come back to it later, that might help while you digest some of this information because it's quite a bit. Starting on page 27, quote, if you want to experience the supernatural in your own life by healing your body, creating new opportunities you could never have imagined before, and having transcendent mystical experiences, you first need to master the concept of the present moment, the eternal now. After all, if you don't get beyond what you think you are and the way you've been conditioned to believe the world works, it's not possible to create a new life or new density. So in a very real sense, you have to get out of your own way, transcend the memory of yourself as an identity, and allow something greater than you, something mystical, to take over. When any neurological tissue in the brain or the body is activated, it creates mind. Consequently, from a neuroscientific understanding, mind is the brain in action. For instance, you have a specific mind to drive your car. You have another mind to take a shower. End quote. So my thoughts on that, the idea of mastering the present moment can seem simple until you realize that you'll need to set aside all concepts about yourself. You know, we grow up being told to know who we are and have an identity and all of that. He's basically saying you have to let go of all of that. On page 29, when you think a thought or have a memory, a biochemical reaction begins in your brain, causing the brain to release certain chemical signals. That's how immaterial thoughts literally become matter. They become chemical messengers. As a result, your brain becomes an artifact of your past thinking, and in time it becomes easier to automatically think in the same ways. At the same time, you repeatedly feel the same emotions over and over again. Emotions are the vocabulary of the body and the chemical residue of past experiences. You are conditioning your body into the past. End quote. So when you have a thought, it triggers the release of neurochemicals, and that's how a thought or a thing becomes, that's how a thought or an idea becomes a physical thing. If you think the same thought over and over, this can create a cycle of the same life over and over. And it reminds me that saying of if you always do what you've always done, you'll always get what you've always gotten. And you're living in the past. So the quote about the brain becoming an artifact of the past. Wow. That's a pretty intense concept. I know I don't want to become an artifact. Given what you've just, quote, given what you've just learned about feelings and emotions being the chemical end products of past events, the moment you wake up in the morning and search for the familiar feeling called you, you're starting your day in the past. And if those familiar emotions influence the choices you're going to make that day, the behaviors you're going to exhibit, or the experiences you're going to create for yourself, then you're going to appear predictable and your life is going to stay the same. If you keep doing these same routines over and over again, they will become a habit. A habit is a redundant set of automatic, unconscious thoughts, behaviors, and emotions that you acquire through frequent repetition. Basically, it means your body is now on autopilot, running a series of programs, and over time, your body becomes the mind. Over time, you've created a set of hardwired neurological networks in the brain, and you have emotionally conditioned your body to live in the past, and that past becomes your future. Your yesterday is creating your tomorrow. End quote. Wow, this this was a real game changer for me. I realized from those quotes that I do wake up each morning a little disoriented until I consciously find and search for the me that's familiar. Then I get into, I'll say past tense, I used to get into my rut of feeling like me and proceed to have a day of me. I woke up, um, dreaded getting out of bed, going to work. While I was commuting, I would think about all the things that I didn't like about my job. And it's that Groundhog Day thing over and over and over. And sure enough, I would get to work, and that's exactly how it would play out. But this was a life changer for me. After I read these quotes, I decided to do a little experiment. So I decided to wake up and be totally new. So, how would I invent a new start to the day? Well, one of the things I love is being around horses. They just make me happy. So I dressed and ate breakfast and pretended like instead of driving to work, I was going to see my horses. Now, I don't own any horses, but this was imagined. So as I drove to work, I pictured myself and felt what it would be like if I owned 3 horses. I imagined going to their pasture and seeing the early morning fog on the grass. The horses came up to greet me, and I enjoyed their warmthness, their warm smell and their warm skin. I saw myself giving each one a hug, and it just made me smile. And each time my mind would try to switch back to an unhappy thought, I just refocused on the horse thoughts. And the whole time I'm driving into work. And by the time I got there, I had a smile on my face that I just couldn't wipe off. My face hurt from smiling for so long. And I noticed that it had been about a 30-minute dose of good neurochemicals. And this is how to change your body. This is how to change your thoughts and your health. I tried this again the next day, but I found that traffic needed my full attention. But this experience made me see how much of my life is lived by habit, and that's living in the past. So it's funny how we can do the same habits day after day and then wonder why every day seems the same. pages 31 through 33. Quote, "In fact, if something new happened, if something unknown were to unfold in your life at that moment to change the same predictable timeline of your day, you'd probably be annoyed at the disruption of your routine. The fact is, there's no room for the unknown in a predictable life. So let me ask you, how much room in your routine, predictable life do you have for the unknown? If you can predict the feeling of any experience, you are still in the known. This thinking-feeling loop also produces a measurable electromagnetic field that surrounds our physical bodies. So we are always sending and receiving electromagnetic energy. Here's how that works. When we think a thought, those networks of neurons that fire in our brain create electrical charges. When those thoughts also cause a chemical reaction, that results in a feeling or an emotion, as well as when familiar feeling or emotion is driving our thoughts. Those feelings create magnetic charges. They merge with the thoughts that create the electrical charges to produce a specific electromagnetic field equal to your state of being." End quote. So he asks, how much room do you have for the unknown? Predicting your future feeling based on memories of the past. That's how most of us live. We usually don't like being interrupted. Some of us can get pretty irritated. But there's also a boredom factor in living a predictable life. So we can see ourselves as little broadcast stations, and we have to change our thoughts and feelings if we want to change what we're sending out.